I'm guessing most of you already know that the universe is big. But what probably not many of you realize is that the universe is actually crazy big. Let's start with something simple, like the moon. The moon dominates the night sky and feels pretty close, even though we know it's not actually that close. In fact, you could fit all the planets of the solar system in the space between the Earth and the moon, and that's just the distance from here to the moon. When it comes to the distances between planets, that's a whole different story. The farthest planet in the solar system is Neptune. On average, it sits about 4.5 billion kilometers away from the sun. That number is so huge, it's basically impossible for us to really picture how far that is. So let me give you a different perspective. Imagine if the sun was sitting in Bratislava and the Earth was in Vienna. On that scale, Neptune would be all the way out in London. Yeah, I have a hard time believing it too, but it's true. And even that distance is nothing compared to some of the others out there in the universe. But before we get into that, a quick detour about the sun. The sun is massive, like ridiculously big. Sure, when you look up in the sky, it seems about the same size as the moon. But that's just because of a pretty wild coincidence. The sun is actually about 400 times bigger than the moon, but it's also 400 times farther away. The sun makes up an unbelievable 99.85% of the total mass of the entire solar system. That means all the planets, moons, dwarf planets, asteroids, and comets together share just a tiny 0.15%. Back to what I said earlier, the sun is huge. Compared to the planets, it's absolutely massive. But when you compare it to other stars, our sun is actually pretty average. There are stars out there that are way, way bigger. Take VY Canis Majoris, for example. It's about 2,000 times the size of the sun. Now let's jump back to distances. The closest star to us, besides the sun, is Proxima Centauri. But even that star is 4.2 light years away. A light year is the distance light travels in 1 Earth year. And since light moves at about 299,792,458 meters per second, in a year it covers roughly 9.5 trillion kilometers. So the closest star is around 40 trillion kilometers away. To put that into perspective with something we can actually imagine, let's say the sun is again in Vienna, and the Earth is just 30 meters away from it. In that case, the closest star would be somewhere in Miami. The sun, together with Proxima Centauri and over 100 million other stars, plus more than 100 million planets, are all part of a galaxy called the Milky Way. The distance from one end of the Milky Way to the other is about 100,000 light years. In other words, going across our galaxy is about 23,500 times farther than the trip to our nearest star. But here's the thing, the Milky Way is nowhere near the only galaxy out there, and fair warning, from this point in the video, things are about to get a lot more complicated. And it's really hard to keep track of just how huge all this is, so pay attention. If we zoom out a bit, we see that the Milky Way is part of what's called the local group of galaxies, which includes 54 galaxies and spans about 10 million light years. If we zoom out even further, we reach the local supercluster of galaxies, which contains at least 100 of those local groups I just mentioned. But even that massive supercluster is only a tiny piece of the Laniakea. It includes an incredible 100,000 galaxies and stretches across 520 million light years. And if we zoom out even more, we reach the entire observable universe. Even the gigantic Laniakea supercluster is just a tiny speck in comparison. The whole observable universe has a diameter of about 93 billion light years and contains at least 2 trillion galaxies. Of course, we have no idea what's beyond the observable universe. The universe is expanding, and according to some theories, it could be up to 150 quadrillion times bigger than the entire observable universe by now. I think this number clearly answers the question, are we alone?